The city lights flickered under the weight of the storm. Above the tall alien towers, the sky glowed in strange colors: violet, silver, and deep green, like paint spilled across the dark heavens. Thunder cracked, not in the way Miran remembered from Earth, but in sharp tones that sounded almost like voices. The people in the streets hurried to find cover, their cloaks pressed tight against their bodies, their eyes filled with fear. To them, the storm was not only dangerous, it was a warning. Miran stood in the middle of the street, rain falling on his jacket. He looked up, his heart racing. He had seen storms before, but this one felt alive. The lightning did not fall straight, it curved in spirals and patterns, almost like symbols written by an invisible hand. Each flash seemed to carry meaning, though he could not understand it. He noticed the locals running toward a tall, old building at the center of the street. It was a hotel, its stone walls dark with age, its many windows glowing faintly in the storm. The sign above the door swayed back and forth, its letters carved in both alien script and human translation, "The clouds peer in." Miran followed the crowd and stepped through the heavy wooden doors. Inside, the storm sound softened, though the walls seemed to tremble with every thunderclap. The hotel lobby was wide, lit with old lanterns that burned with blue flame. Strange symbols were carved into the pillars, and the floor was covered with a faded red carpet. Dozens of travelers gathered there, speaking in low voices. Some were humans, but most were alien merchants, scholars, or workers. Their faces were tense, their bodies stiff. They looked at the storm as if it were more than weather, something alive, something hunting. The receptionist, an alien woman with long silver eyes, stood behind a polished desk. She handed out keys to the guests, her hands trembling slightly. When Miran stepped forward, she looked at him for a long moment. "You are human," she said softly, her voice carrying both surprise and worry. "Yes," Miran answered. "I was caught outside when the storm began. I need a room for the night." Her silver eyes flickered. "There is only one left. Top floor." "But," she hesitated, lowering her voice. "That room is not like the others. Guests do not stay there long. If you hear anything strange, do not answer it." Miran frowned. "Hear what?" The receptionist only shook her head and placed a brass key in his palm. The metal felt warm, almost pulsing with life. He climbed the spiral staircase, each step creaking under his boots. The hotel was quiet on the upper floors, the kind of silence that made his chest tighten. The air grew colder as he reached the final landing. His room waited at the very end of the hall. The number was carved into the door in faint letters, half faded with time, room 717. The key fit perfectly, and with a slow turn, the lock clicked open. Inside, the room was large but dim. Curtains swayed gently though the windows were closed. The walls seemed to hum softly, like a faint vibration just beyond hearing. A single lamp on the desk gave off a weak golden glow. The bed was neatly made, though the sheets looked untouched for years. Miran stepped inside, setting his bag on the floor. He moved to the window and pulled the curtain aside. Outside, the storm raged harder. Lightning coiled in the distance like snakes of fire. The clouds twisted in spirals that pulled at the center of the sky, as though something waited beyond them. He pressed his hand against the glass. It was warm. For a second, the lightning flashed, and he thought he saw shapes moving in the storm, figures with long arms and glowing eyes. But when the thunder rolled, they were gone. Miran took a deep breath and sat on the edge of the bed. He was tired from the long journey, but the storm filled him with restless energy. He could not shake the feeling that the room itself was watching him. The hum in the walls grew louder. He leaned closer, placing his ear against the plaster. For just a moment, he thought he heard something like a whisper, soft and distant. The words were unclear, almost like another language. He pulled back quickly, his heart racing. His mind told him it was only the wind, the storm pressing against the hotel's old frame. Yet deep inside, a quiet voice told him this was different. He lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The hum continued, steady and patient, as if waiting. The storm outside rumbled, but here, in room 717, Miran felt something else. Not danger, not yet, but a test. And in that moment, though he could not explain why, he knew the storm had not come by accident. The night stretched long inside room 717. The storm outside did not calm, instead, it grew wilder. The windows rattled with each strike of lightning, but the glass never cracked. Strange shadows slid across the walls, though there was no lamp to cast them. Miran lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep did not come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, the humming in the walls returned. It was not only a sound, it was like a soft pull on his mind, as if the room wanted him to listen. He sat up and ran his hands over his face. "It's just an old building," he muttered. But even his own voice sounded small here. The lamp on the desk flickered. The golden light bent in a strange curve, like water rippling. Miran narrowed his eyes. He stood and touched the lamp. At once, the hum in the walls stopped. For a few seconds, silence filled the room. Then, from the far corner, the curtains shifted though no wind blew. Miran's eyes locked on the window. Slowly, carefully, he stepped closer. The curtain moved again, this time as if something brushed against it from the other side. His chest tightened. He pulled the curtain back quickly. Nothing. Only the storm waited outside, twisting and glowing in strange patterns. But when he turned around, his bag was no longer on the floor where he left it. It now sat neatly on the desk, beside the lamp. Miran froze. He was alone, yet the bag had moved. His heart thumped hard in his chest. He walked over and checked the door. Locked. The brass key was still on the table beside the bed. He whispered to himself, "Something's wrong with this room." The humming returned, louder this time. The wall seemed to breathe, pushing forward slightly, then pulling back. Miran placed his hand on the surface. Warm. Not like stone or wood, warm, like skin. The whispers came again, clearer now. He could not understand the words, but they carried a rhythm, almost like a song. The voice was soft, tempting, urging him to come closer, to listen deeper. For a moment, he felt a pull in his chest. It was not fear, it was a strange comfort, as if the room promised safety and peace if only he would let go. His body leaned forward without his command, his forehead almost touching the wall. But then Miran shook his head sharply. He stepped back, breathing hard. "No," he whispered. "You don't control me." The whispers stopped instantly. The hum quieted to a faint vibration, as if the room itself was disappointed. Miran sat down at the desk, staring at his bag. He opened it, checking inside. Nothing was missing, nothing was changed. But the way it had moved disturbed him. He knew he needed answers. He thought of the receptionist. Her warning now echoed louder in his mind, "If you hear anything strange, do not answer it." So this was what she meant. The room did not speak with words alone, it tried to call him, to lure him. But why? Miran leaned back in the chair, folding his arms. "You want me to answer, don't you?" he said into the empty air. His voice was calm, but his heartbeat was fast. "But I won't. I'm not here to play your game." At once, the window cracked open by itself, though the latch had not moved. A strong gust of storm air blew into the room. The curtains flew high, the lamp shook, and the golden flame went out. Darkness covered the room, except for the glow of lightning outside. Miran grabbed the edge of the desk to keep steady. He felt the pull again, stronger now, as if invisible hands tried to drag him toward the window. His legs trembled under the pressure. But he dug his boots into the floor, fighting back. He shouted above the storm, "I said no." And just like that, the pressure stopped. The window slammed shut with a loud bang. The curtains fell still. The hum faded, leaving only the distant thunder outside. Miran's chest heaved with heavy breaths. He wiped sweat from his forehead. The room had tested him, tried to break his will, but he was still standing. He lit the lamp again, his hands shaking only slightly. He sat back down on the bed, staring at the walls. They no longer moved, but he knew this was only the beginning. Room 717 was not simply a place to rest. It was something alive, something ancient. It wanted something from him, but he did not yet know what. Still, as he looked around the strange, humming space, Miran felt a spark of determination. If the room wanted to test him, then he would face the test. For he was human. And humans, more than any other, had a habit of resisting the impossible. The storm outside never stopped. All night the sky glowed with strange colors, and the lightning moved like handwriting across the clouds. Inside room 717, Miran sat awake, his eyes heavy but his mind sharp. He had faced the pull of the room once already, and though it frightened him, a part of him wanted to understand it. The hum in the walls returned, steady and low. At first, it was only a vibration in his chest, but then it shaped itself into a sound, softer, more careful this time. The sound formed into a voice. Miran, he froze. His name. It spoke his name. He stood up slowly, scanning the room. "Who's there?" His voice was firm, though his hands trembled. The voice came again, smooth and quiet, as if whispered from inside the walls. "Miran. You do not need to be afraid. You are safe here. The storm cannot touch you if you stay with me." The words were clear, yet the sound was not human. It was not alien either. It was something in between, too soft to belong to a machine, too calm to belong to a person. Miran took a step back. "You're not real. You're a trick of the storm." The walls pulsed faintly with light, thin lines glowing like veins. The hum grew warmer, almost gentle. "I am real. I can give you rest. You are tired, so far from home. Let me carry your weight. Let me keep you safe." The voice tempted him with kindness, not force. It offered comfort, as though it knew what he wanted most: rest, peace, and shelter. For a moment, Miran felt his shoulders relax. The tension left his muscles. His eyes grew heavy. The bed looked soft, almost welcoming, as if it was calling him. But then he remembered the receptionist's warning, "Do not answer it." His eyes snapped open wider. He clenched his fists. "No," he said firmly. "I don't need your help. If you are so powerful, why do you hide inside these walls?" The room grew colder. The light veins on the walls flickered. The voice grew sharper, less gentle. "You resist. That is strange. Others do not resist me. Others listen. Others obey." Miran took another step back, his heart pounding. "I'm not like the others," he said. "I'm human. We don't just obey. We ask questions. We fight back." The room fell silent for a moment. The storm outside seemed to pause, as if the world itself held its breath. Then, laughter filled the walls, not loud laughter, but a quiet echo, like many voices at once. "Human," the whisper said. "Yes, different. That is why you were brought here. That is why the storm called you." Miran's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "The storm called me." The voice did not answer directly. Instead, the windows flashed with lightning, showing shapes in the storm. For just an instant, Miran saw them again, tall figures with glowing eyes, standing in the spirals of light. They raised their arms toward the hotel, toward him. He stepped closer to the window, pressing his hand to the glass. "Who are they?" he whispered. The voice slid back into his ears. "They are watchers. They are the ones who created me. I am their gate. I am their test. They wish to know if you are strong enough." "Strong enough for what?" Miran asked quickly. "To survive what is coming." The room darkened as the lamp flickered out again. Only the lightning lit the space now, flashing in bursts. The voice grew softer, closer. "Answer me, Miran. Do you want peace? Do you want safety? If you say yes, I will keep you. If you say yes, the storm will never harm you. All you must do is trust me." Miran stood frozen. The temptation was strong. He had no weapon, no protection, and the storm outside was clearly unnatural. The idea of safety, of being carried through this strange danger, tugged at him. But he clenched his jaw. "If peace means giving you control, then no. I'd rather fight than be someone else's prisoner." The walls shook violently. The floor trembled beneath his feet. The voice lost its calm tone and turned into a low hiss. "You refuse me? You reject the gift? Foolish human." Miran raised his voice above the shaking. "I don't need gifts from something that hides in the walls. If you want me, come out and face me." The storm roared outside, thunder breaking like an explosion. The light veins across the room burned bright red for a moment, then snapped dark. Silence. Miran stood in the middle of the room, chest heaving, waiting for the voice to return. But it did not. The hum faded completely, leaving only the distant rumble of thunder. For the first time since entering room 717, the room was quiet. Truly quiet. Miran sat back on the bed, his body shaking from the tension. He did not know if he had won or if the room was only waiting for another chance. But one thing was certain: he had been tested, and he had refused. And though fear still filled his chest, a spark of pride burned beneath it. He whispered to himself, "If this is a test, then I'll show them what it means to be human." The morning never came. The storm outside continued without pause, as if the sun had been erased from the sky. Miran had lost track of time inside room 717. Hours passed, maybe more, yet the storm raged on. He sat at the desk, staring at the faint cracks in the walls. Since his last refusal, the voice had not returned. The silence felt heavier than the whispers. It was the silence of something waiting, something preparing. Miran's thoughts drifted back to what the voice had said: "I am their gate. I am their test." If that was true, then the storm was not natural, and neither was this hotel. He rubbed his chin, his mind racing. Who were the watchers? What were they testing him for? The door to his room rattled suddenly. His head snapped toward it. The brass key on the table shook against the wood as if unseen hands tried to turn it. Miran stood slowly, fists clenched. "Who's there?" The door swung open on its own. The hallway beyond stretched dark, though faint blue light pulsed along the walls like veins. Miran stepped carefully into the corridor. His boots echoed softly against the carpet. The entire hotel was silent. No guests, no voices, not even footsteps. It felt abandoned. He walked down the hallway, past doors with faded numbers. When he reached the staircase, the air shifted. A low vibration crawled through the floorboards, traveling up his legs. The humming voice returned, this time spread through the entire hotel. "You resist, human," the voice said, calm once again. "You deny the comfort. You refuse the safety. Very well. You will face the truth of the test." The staircase lit with faint symbols, lines of glowing script that wound up the walls like fire. The shapes were not human letters, but they pulsed in rhythm, almost alive. Miran descended the stairs, keeping his eyes sharp. On the second floor, the doors on either side began to open one by one. From the darkness inside, visions appeared. He saw a small earth home with warm light in the window. He saw fields of green, children laughing, and skies without storms. His chest ached. These were memories of home, places he longed for. The voice whispered, "You can have this. A world without fear. A life without struggle. Say yes, and it is yours." Miran shook his head hard. "These are only images. You're showing me what I want, not what's real." The door slammed shut at once, the visions vanishing into darkness. The voice grew sharper. "You deny even your own heart? Then you are stubborn beyond reason." "I'm not stubborn," Miran said firmly. "I'm free. I won't let anyone, not even you, tell me what to want." The hum deepened into a roar. The carpet under his boots peeled away like smoke, leaving the wood beneath glowing faintly red. The hotel itself shifted, walls bending, stairs stretching higher than before. The building was no longer a building, it was alive, reshaping itself around him. Miran clenched his fists. "So this is the test," he muttered. The voice echoed all around him, filling every corner. "Yes, human. This is the test of will. Many enter. All fall. They answer me. They surrender. And I take them. But you, why do you fight?" Miran looked up at the ceiling, where cracks of light spread like a spider's web. "Because that's what humans do. We fight. Even when it doesn't make sense. Even when the odds are impossible. We don't just obey, we struggle, we push forward, we survive." The hotel shook violently, as if rejecting his answer. Windows shattered along the walls, spilling stormlight inside. The thunder outside grew louder, shaking the very floor. Through the broken glass, Miran saw the watchers again. Tall, glowing figures, standing in the storm's spiral. Their eyes burned with white fire, their arms raised toward him. The voice spoke, heavier now, as though every watcher spoke at once. "Prove it. Show us. Endure the trial, and we will know if your words are truth." Miran gritted his teeth. "Fine. Give me your trial. I won't run." The staircase stretched higher, twisting like a tower of smoke. A pull dragged at his body, urging him upward. With steady steps, Miran climbed. Each level he passed was filled with visions, friends he missed, moments he regretted, futures he wished for. Each one tried to stop him, tried to make him reach out. But he kept climbing, never slowing, never touching. At last, he reached a great door at the top of the spiral stairs. Its surface glowed with spiraling patterns, and its handle burned like fire. The voice whispered one final time, "Open this door, and the test begins. If you succeed, you will leave. If you fail, you will belong to us forever." Miran tightened his grip on the handle. The fire seared his skin, but he did not let go. His eyes narrowed. "Then let's see what a human can do." With a sharp pull, he opened the door. The stormlight rushed in. And the test truly began. The door slammed shut behind Miran as he stepped through. For a moment, the world vanished. No walls, no floor, no storm. Only a vast emptiness stretched in every direction, black and endless. His boots made no sound as he moved forward. Then, light appeared, thin white lines forming shapes around him. Walls rose, not of stone or wood, but of glowing patterns, shifting and alive. They bent like circuits, humming with power. It was no hotel room anymore. This was a machine. Miran's breath caught. "So this is your true face," he muttered. The voice answered, louder now, vibrating through the strange walls. "Yes. You see us as we are. Not a room, not a storm. A construct. A gate built long ago by the watchers." The floor beneath him shifted into a smooth silver surface. Images formed in the air, faces of people, some human, some alien, all with empty eyes. They floated like ghosts, reaching for him. "These are those who entered before you," the voice said. "They surrendered. They belong to us now." The ghostly figures whispered, their voices echoing in unison. "Join us, Miran. Rest. You are tired. You cannot win." Miran clenched his fists. "No, I won't join you. I don't need rest if it means losing myself." The walls pulsed brighter, almost angry. The figures closed in, their hands brushing against his skin, cold and heavy. He felt the weight of them pressing down, the temptation to give in. It would be so easy, just stop resisting, let go, drift into the comfort they promised. But Miran shook his head hard. He shouted, "Humans don't stop when it's easy. We stop when the fight is done." The ghosts hissed and vanished like smoke. The walls shifted again, reshaping into a maze. Long glowing corridors stretched in every direction, bending and twisting like a puzzle. "Then find your way," the voice said. "Every turn will test you. Every path will challenge your mind. If you falter, you will stay here forever." Miran took a deep breath. "A maze, then. Fine. I'll walk it." He stepped into the first corridor. The floor glowed under his boots, lighting his way. At the first turn, the walls bent into mirrors. Each reflection showed him a different version of himself, weak, broken, afraid. One showed him giving up, another showed him falling to his knees. "Which one are you, human?" the voice asked. "Are you truly strong, or is your strength only an illusion?" Miran stared at the mirrors. For a moment, his stomach twisted. The reflections looked real, too real. He could almost feel the weakness pulling at him. But then he smiled faintly. "These aren't me," he said. "They're just fears. Fears don't control me. They remind me what not to become." With a strong swing of his arm, he punched the nearest mirror. It shattered into light, and the corridor ahead opened. The maze continued. At each turn, new illusions appeared, friends calling his name, voices begging him to stop, visions of Earth so beautiful it made his heart ache. Each time, the temptation rose, but Miran forced himself forward. Hours seemed to pass, though time had no meaning here. His body grew heavy, his legs burned, but still he walked. Finally, he reached the heart of the maze. A wide chamber opened before him, glowing with white fire. At its center floated a massive sphere, its surface covered with symbols that shifted endlessly. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is me," the voice said, deeper than ever before. "The core. The machine. The gate. Strike me, if you believe you can." Miran stared at the sphere. Its glow filled his eyes, almost too bright to look at. His fists clenched, but doubt slipped into his chest. How could a single human fight something so vast, so ancient? The voice sensed his hesitation. "You are small, Miran. You are only flesh. I am endless. I am thought and machine joined as one. You cannot win." Miran closed his eyes, breathing slowly. He remembered every step, every whisper, every illusion. They all tried to break him with comfort or fear. But he was still standing. That had to mean something. He opened his eyes again and raised his voice. "Maybe I can't break you with fists. Maybe I can't outmatch your power. But humans have something you can't understand." "And what is that?" the machine asked. "Stubbornness." With that, Miran stepped forward and pressed both hands against the glowing sphere. Heat burned his skin, pain shot up his arms, but he didn't pull back. He pushed harder, shouting with every ounce of strength. The sphere trembled. Cracks of light spread across its surface. The machine roared, its voice shaking the chamber. "Impossible. No other has resisted this long. Miran gritted his teeth. That's because I'm not like the others. I'm human. And we don't know how to quit. With one final push, the sphere shattered into 1,000 streams of light. The chamber shook violently, the maze dissolving around him. The endless black space cracked open, spilling brightness into the void. Miran fell to his knees, exhausted, but he was smiling. He had faced the machine, and he had not broken. The storm's roar returned, louder than ever. The Watchers' glowing figures appeared again in the light, their eyes burning brighter. The test was not over yet. But Miran had proved something no one else had before. He could resist, he could endure, and he could fight even when the fight seemed hopeless. And that, he knew, was what made him human. The light from the shattered sphere faded slowly, leaving Miran kneeling in the empty chamber. His hands burned, his chest ached, but he forced himself to stand. The silence felt heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the storm outside. For a brief moment, he thought he had won. But then, the chamber began to rebuild itself. Lines of fire stitched across the walls, reforming the maze. The machine's voice returned, deeper and sharper than before. You have hurt me, human. But you cannot destroy me. I am eternal. I will rebuild. And you will stay here until your will breaks. Miran wiped sweat from his forehead and laughed weakly. Eternal or not, you bleed like anything else. I saw it when you cracked. You're not untouchable. The walls pulsed red, angry. You think your defiance is strength. But you have only delayed the inevitable. The Watchers appeared again outside the chamber, their tall glowing figures shining through cracks of stormlight. Their eyes burned with strange fire as they raised their arms toward him. He felt their gaze pressing against his mind, heavier than chains. Miran staggered but stood firm. So this is the real trap. Not just the illusions, not just the maze. You want to keep me here forever. A prisoner of your storm. Yes, the machine admitted, its voice echoing like thunder. Those who enter never leave. Their thoughts feed me. Their strength becomes mine. You will join them. The chamber shifted again. Doors opened all around him, each one leading to visions of peace, a quiet field, a warm home, the smiling faces of people he loved. His chest tightened as he saw them, his heart aching. The machine whispered, "Why suffer, Miran? You fought bravely, more than most. But even bravery has limits. Step through, and your struggle ends. You will know peace forever." He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down. His arms hurt, his legs trembled, his mind burned from resisting. For a heartbeat, he wanted to give in. To stop fighting. To rest. But then, deep inside, something sparked. A memory of Earth, the rough soil beneath his hands when he was young, the laughter of people working together, the endless human drive to keep moving forward even when everything seemed hopeless. He opened his eyes and shouted, "No. Peace without freedom is just another prison. I won't step through your doors. I'll break them instead." The chamber trembled as he ran toward the nearest glowing door. Instead of entering, he slammed his shoulder into it with all his strength. The door cracked like glass, shattering into fragments of light. The machine roared, its voice filled with fury. "You dare destroy what I offer you?" Miran turned, panting. "What you offer is a lie. Humans don't grow in comfort. We grow in struggle. And you can't trap me in something I don't believe in." One by one, he smashed the doors. Each one shattered into dust, leaving nothing but open space. The more he destroyed, the weaker the machine's hum became. The chamber walls began to fade, their glow flickering like dying fire. The Watchers outside stirred, their eyes flashing brighter. Their voices rumbled in unison, "Enough. End this." The machine screamed, and the chamber shifted into chaos. The floor cracked open, splitting into rivers of burning light. Walls bent inward, crushing down. The air grew heavy, pulling at Miran like gravity. He stumbled, falling to his knees. The storm's power pressed against him, trying to crush him into the ground. But he clenched his teeth and forced himself back up. His body screamed in pain, but his mind held firm. You want to crush me? Then you'll have to crush all of humanity with me. Because this is what we do, we stand, no matter how heavy the world gets. With those words, he slammed his fists into the glowing veins of the floor. The lines of light sparked wildly, spreading cracks through the entire chamber. The ground shook as the machine screamed again, this time not in anger but in pain. The watchers raised their arms higher, but their forms flickered. The storm outside shook violently, lightning spinning in wild patterns. Miran struck again, tearing open another glowing vein. The chamber walls split apart, collapsing into waves of light. The maze dissolved, the doors vanished, the illusions shattered. The machine's voice broke into fragments. You cannot destroy me. I am eternal. Miran stood tall, his body trembling but his eyes fierce. Nothing is eternal. Not even you. Because even if you rise again, there will always be someone like me, a human too stubborn to give in. With one final strike, the chamber exploded in a burst of white light. When the brightness faded, Miran was back in the hotel room. Room 717. The bed, the desk, the curtains all there. But the hum in the walls was gone. The air was still. The storm outside was weaker now, its lightning slower, its thunder softer. Miran sank onto the bed, breathing heavily. He had broken the trap. For the first time, the room felt like just a room. Yet he knew the watchers were still out there, watching from the storm. And though he had won this battle, he sensed they were not finished with him yet. But as he closed his eyes for a moment's rest, a tired smile touched his face. He had shown them the truth. A human could not be trapped so easily. And that truth had shaken their ancient machine to its core. The night was almost over. The storm outside the clouds peer-in had weakened. The strange green and violet lights in the sky dimmed, and the spirals of lightning untangled into simple flashes. For the first time in many hours, the city below could breathe again. Miran sat on the edge of the bed in room 717, his body sore, his mind heavy. The hum in the walls was gone. The machine, the maze, the illusions, he had broken them. But the silence that followed did not feel like victory alone. It felt like the calm before something greater. The door to his room creaked. Slowly, Miran rose to his feet. He expected shadows, illusions, or another trick, but instead, it was the receptionist. Her silver eyes shone faintly in the dim hallway light. You are still here, she whispered, almost in disbelief. Miran gave a small smile. I told you I wasn't going to answer the room. I decided to fight it instead. Her expression was unreadable, a mix of fear and awe. No one has ever returned after entering 717. Many tried, none survived. The storm takes them. Yet you, she shook her head. You broke it? Miran shrugged, though his shoulders ached. Maybe it wasn't about strength. Maybe it was just about being too stubborn to quit. Before she could answer, the walls of the hotel rumbled. The storm outside grew louder again, but this time it was different. The watchers appeared beyond the windows, tall, glowing figures with eyes like fire. Their presence filled the sky, and their gaze fell directly on Miran. The receptionist gasped and fell back in fear. The watchers. They never show themselves inside the city. Why are they here? Miran stood tall, his fists clenched. Because they lost something they thought was impossible to lose. The watchers raised their hands, and their voices boomed, not from the hotel, but from the storm itself. Human. You resisted. You broke the trial. None have done this before. Miran shouted back, his voice firm. Because you don't understand humans. You built your trap to tempt and break minds. You thought peace, comfort, and fear could control everyone. But humans are different. We fight even when it doesn't make sense. We don't give in, even when we should. The storm rumbled, the watcher's light flickering. You speak as if stubbornness is strength. Miran stepped forward, closer to the window. It is. You've taken countless beings, trapped them forever. But I'm telling you now, you'll never take all of us. There will always be another human, just as foolish and stubborn as me, who will fight you. That's what makes us dangerous. Silence followed. The watchers stood motionless, their burning eyes fixed on him. The receptionist looked at Miran as though he was a warrior standing against gods. Finally, the watchers lowered their arms. Their voices softened, rolling through the storm like distant thunder. We see now. Humanity is not like the others. You resist not with power, but with will. This makes you different. Miran narrowed his eyes. So what happens now? Do you try again? Do you rebuild your trap? The watcher's glow dimmed. No. The gate is broken. You have shown its weakness. Humanity has left its mark upon us. The storm outside began to fade, the strange colors dissolving into the pale blue of early morning. The watchers' figures dissolved with it, their forms scattering into the sky like sparks. The receptionist stood slowly, still trembling. They left, she whispered. They never leave. What did you do to them? Miran exhaled deeply, his body finally relaxing. I didn't do anything special. I just refused to give in. That's all. But deep inside, he knew it was more than that. He had forced the watchers to see something they had never seen before, a human's refusal to surrender, even in the face of impossible odds. By the time the sun rose, the storm was gone. The city began to stir again, its people stepping out into the light with relief. They looked up at the calm sky, whispering to one another in awe. News spread quickly that someone had survived room 717. A human. The aliens of the colony whispered his name, their voices filled with respect and wonder. Miran left the hotel quietly, his bag slung over his shoulder. He did not seek fame or reward. He only wanted to walk under the morning sun, free of the storm. But everywhere he went, eyes followed him. Whispers rose in the streets, the human faced the storm. The human broke the trap. The human endured what no one else could. For the first time, humanity was not seen as weak or small in the eyes of the aliens. They were seen as something unique, dangerous not because of weapons or strength, but because of will. Miran walked on, a tired smile on his face. He knew the watchers might return one day. But if they did, they would remember this night. They would remember that a human had left a mark on their ancient design. And that mark would never fade.